It's nice to meet you, Khalik.
Pleasure to meet you, man.
Thank you.
I'm glad to be here.
Good, yeah, me too. Just so people know the context, we're at the Made in New York Media Center in Dumbo, and thanks for coming out and meeting me here. You know.
Definitely.
And your film, Field Niggas, is going to be having a screening at the RealWorks offices, they have a loft there, so it's a nice spot for a screening, and it's on the 12th.
I'm actually on my way there, like I said, after I meet you, so I've never been there before. I'm looking forward to it.
Good, yeah. No, you'll have a good time. And they're really nice young people there, and you'll have a really good conversation with them afterwards, too, because it was nice. And Ralph is a really great guy, too, so should be a good experience. Is this your first...
it's my first
feature.
Screening. Yeah,
and this is your first screening of this film, Field Niggas.
Yes, it's actually
hold it a little closer to
the second installment of a string of screenings that I'm going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I have made other movies before, which had theatrical,
Is that right?
Not proper theatrical releases, only film festivals.
Okay, so you've played at festivals. Okay, yeah, I understand. And or have they been like an hour or longer, feature length, let's say, or have they been shorts?
Well, mainly I do shorts, but I did do a 90-minute film with Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it was centered on a man named Papa Wu, who's like the patriarch of the Wu-Tang Clan. He's RZA's Old Dirty Bastards and Jizz's older cousin.
Okay, can you Ghostface Killah? Now I've had a problem with him, so I'll tell you afterwards and you pass along the message. I'm kidding around. I actually worked at Sony Music. Do they perform as a group anymore or a variation?
Their album actually just came out on the 2nd of this month of
Wu-Tang
December.
Clan has a new album?
Yeah, they got a new album called A Better Tomorrow.
Kind of a reunion in a way then.
Yeah. Basically, it's their 20-year anniversary around this time of the year,
Okay.
I mean, I grew up with Wu-Tang, not personally knowing them. I only met them later on in my life, but I grew up with their music from the 4th grade school bus with the headphones listening to, Jizz's Liquid Swords album. So that music shaped my life, man, and...
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Long Island, Suffolk County, a town called Patchogue, but I went to Bellport High School, so it was really on the cusp of those two towns, Bellport and Patchogue.
You grew up there. Did you then move to the city at any point, or you've always been in Long Island?
Well, my relationship with the city has been ongoing since a child because my family is originally from Bushwick, and they moved from Bushwick to Flushing, Queens. Then by the time, because I got two older brothers, they were both born in Bushwick, but by the time I was born, I'm the third child, my family had already moved to Long Island. Gotcha. So, but the thing is, my mom and my father had to constantly be in and out of the city because they worked in the city, and all of the clothes shopping and all of the shopping was done.
And you had probably family friends there. I'm going to guess.
Exactly. So even though I rested my head in Long Island, all of my relationships were mainly, even from a young age, in the city. So I grew up skateboarding and wilding out the Lower East Side and shopping on Jamaica Avenue in Queens, and
Yes. Yeah. Why did you become interested in images? Because you're a photographer, self-taught, and you're also now, or have been a filmmaker, self-taught. So, which is cool, but I'm just wondering where that began. Do you remember?
I think I was always a visual person throughout my life. Early impressions were never something that somebody said to me or anything that somebody told me with words. It was always something that I saw visually, and that stuff just got burnt into my brain and into my eyes and into my whole being. So, the camera was a natural progression of me wanting to express myself through vision. I'm not really too much of a verbose person, although I'm speaking more and more nowadays because people ask me questions. And I'm happy to be, doing interviews and answering questions. But, I sit back and I analyze and I study and I absorb things. And then I express it silently by way of the camera.
Understood. Right.
But, I got my first camera when I was 14. I begged my mother for, a video camera for my 14th birthday.
Really?
Yeah, that was in 1999. And she bought me a Hi-8, camera that took, the Hi-8 tapes.
Yes.
And, we just went around the neighborhood skateboarding, breakdancing, and just recording everything. And at that point, I didn't understand that this could be edited.
Right. That you could actually form it into kind of a story, like there could be an arc or some sort of story within that. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was just...
You didn't have somebody teaching you this. You just kind of figured it out as you went along.
I remember I had a friend. His name was Keith. We called him Nutty K. That was his b-boy name.
Yes.
And he was going to high school. He's a little older than me. I was still in middle school, and he was showing me edited video of us breakdancing in the garage, and I'm like, yo, how did you edit this? He's like, oh, they showed me in school that I could cut this up. So, you know, he was cutting in like Lords of the Flies into a skateboard and stuff like that, and I was just impressed and amazed, and I said, yo, I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. It's so arbitrary in a way, you know, but you just sort of, you know, found it, you know, or it found you, I guess. Now, talk about this particular movie or documentary. It's not really, I mean, it is a documentary, but it's I've seen this before, but not with such a punch to it. I'm going to describe the technique, but you describe the story behind it and give me an update on like how, because these people are remarkable. So you basically shot folks in, was it in Harlem?
Yes.
Right?
In the 130s? All of it was 125th.
125th Street.
And Lexington Avenue, the entire film.
Oh, right in that intersection, more or less, right? Right
yes.
in that media area. Okay, amazing. And then you took, basically what we're watching is audio shot, taken on a Zoom, as I...
Exactly.
And then you superimpose, I guess, if that's, or you just impose video over an audio track.
Exactly.
So when we're hearing the different characters, the different people that you shot, we're seeing them, but again, it's not matched up with their voices or anything, but we're hearing them and seeing them.
Right.
And it has doing that, it has a really different kind of impact than it would if you just did the typical, more conventional,
yes,
you know, talking head type thing.
Yeah, I wanted to give it that, you know, a distance. You know, I wanted to maintain a deep sense of intimacy, yet at the same time have that distance. And that distance is brought about in it being unsync or out of sync. When you hear somebody talking, you see a visual image of the person. You kind of think it's them, but you're not sure. But you're seeing something, you're hearing something, and these things don't conflict. Although you're seeing something, hearing something, and it's out of sync, it still fits in a certain way.
It does.
The film, like, you know, I heard you trying to explain it, you know, a few sentences ago, and it's very hard to categorize a movie like this. And is it a documentary? Is it a narrative? Is it a story? Like, and I think I'm trying to create a new language of documentary filmmaking where I embrace subjectivity so much that it becomes objective. It's almost like going so far in a circle that you're right where you began. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel that this technique is extremely direct and useful, and it gives people the opportunity to think about their own impressions. I kind of want to invite people to come with me in this documentary. Come with me and judge it for yourself. I don't want to tell you what to think.
You obviously have been thinking about this quite a bit. It's obvious. So it's important, by the way, to know how to talk about your film. You know,
yes.
not that, you know, I think you want to discuss it in a very emotional, personal way, because that's how people will connect to you as a person and as a filmmaker. And I think that's really important, you know, personally. But talk a bit about the people that are in the film and how it is you got them to agree to participate. I mean, they're mostly really addicted people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the greatest triumphs of the film, and that's what makes the film. You know, that it is. I have to say that I've been in that area as a photographer, documenting that area and building relationships for about 2 years, really since 2012, or like November 2012, around that time. I started coming out at night with the Nikon F2 and just getting stills on film. And, you know, at first, obviously, there was suspicion.
Sure.
And it was like, who are you and what are you doing and what are your intentions? And I think consistency and just coming through and showing love, you know, being consistent. Respect. Also telling people that this isn't necessarily going to Instagram. Although I do have a website where I publish a lot of the work, I was able to tell the people, like, look, I'm shooting film. This isn't like I'm coming through with an iPhone, taking a picture of a crackhead, putting it on one of these websites that just, exploit people. People kind of like basically welcomed me after a while, like people that kind of was like, yo, I'll slap the shit out of you. They would see me the next week and be like, yo, you want to take my picture?
Yes.
And all I could, I just attribute that to just remaining consistent and steadfast and being sincere about what I wanted to do. And I constantly told the brothers, like, yo, I'm trying to make a book. I'm making films. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a photographer. And just sitting there and talking to a person at length, you could see the picture and it's just one image, but I may have had an hour-long conversation with that person.
Yeah.
And sometimes I go out to the streets with 5 rolls of film, and I shoot only 1 roll of film.
Rolls?
Yeah, 35 millimeter.
You're taking film.
Yes.
Of these people. You're working with actual film. So
yes.
This is not digital?
No.
You're developing these things?
Developing the film, scanning the film, processing the film. I think that, Where
did you come from? No, that's great to hear because it's so... How did you didn't go to school for this. So where, you would think like that dedication to actually shoot with film, whether moving pictures or stills, to do that, I'm wondering again, where does that come from?
Well,
that you wanted to do that. It would have been so much easier to shoot digitally, right?
My orientation towards photography is different than a lot of people. I didn't start as a photographer. I started as a filmmaker. So in August 2010, I had just finished the film that I talked about earlier, Papa Wu, 5% Story, which was my first feature-length documentary film. And that took me 4 years to make. So I was just tired of filmmaking, the whole process of filmmaking, directing, editing, organizing. And I remember, one of my friends was coming out to my house to come visit me. And I asked my brother, I said, can I borrow your camera to take pictures? I had no intentions of ever becoming a photographer, but I just said, my friend is coming out here, and I want to take some photographs of him. Can I borrow your camera? And, he said no. And it kind of took me by surprise because, I'm like, yo, I'm not going to break your camera. But anyway, I thought about it, and I said, where can I get a camera from? And I knew that my father had a camera from, early Christmases and early Thanksgivings and,
right.
just being a kid and him taking pictures.
So when you were growing up, on special occasions, your dad would take pictures of the family, but with a real camera.
Exactly.
Not like a little Kodak, Brownie or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So I had asked him for this,
yeah.
And he went into his closet and he pulled it out, and it hadn't been used in about a decade. And he gave it to me. And the camera itself led me into photography. It was just a Canon AE1, fully manual, metallic. It needed film, it required film. And that itself impressed me so much. The minute that he gave it to me impressed me so much that I said, you know what? I could begin to make films in a fraction of a second. Whereas I just finished a 4-year film venture, I said, hold on, I can make an entire movie in 1/60th of a second, 1/1000th of a second, 1/500th of a second. And that's why I stayed with film and never went digital, because the early impressions of what the possibilities and potential of photography was, it all had to do with film.
So are you saying in a snapshot there's a story? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes. When you look at my photography, each shot is related to the other shot. Yes.
It's like a movie.
This is a movie.
It's interesting you say that because I had on this... I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead, bro.
Listen to this, though, because I think you'd be very interested. I was interviewing this famous documentary filmmaker, and he made a movie called National Gallery, which was just in movie theaters. His name is Frederick Wiseman. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's 84, and he's made close to 40 or 50 documentaries. Wow. Some of them as long as 7 hours, but most of them... in the middle, in 3 hours or something. They're long, most of them, because he shoots institutions. So he'll go to a museum and he'll shoot everything about this museum. He'll shoot meetings going on with the board or trustees or the staff making decisions about this or that. And then he'll shoot people outside. And it's just, by the end of it, you really feel like, geez, I understand. I have this real sense of what this institution's about. But one of the moments is this person talking about artwork and showing one of the masters, it was at the London's National Gallery. And you see in this one painting, like a photograph in the sense that there's an entire story, and to really compel that emotional story through one image is that's a craft.
That's what I aim to do. I give myself a lot of leverage by saying, it may not be just one image. It may have to be a series of images. But I look at it like a roll of film got 36 exposures. So it's already connected. Each frame is connected to the next frame. So you really have 36 notes or 36 pieces of paper, or 36 keys, if you will, to make a masterpiece or to tell a story or to write a short poem or whatever you choose to do with that roll of film. But to me, this is storytelling. I love the nature of film, the fact that it's not immediate. When you write something, it shouldn't be immediate. If you always have to go back and edit it, and that's what I do with my photographs too. I go back and I edit them, not in Photoshop. I don't mean edit like that. I just mean edit as far as in the selection.
Curating a story in a way.
Exactly.
I got you. So you know now Jamel Shabazz?
Oh yeah, Jamel Shabazz is my brother. He's a good brother to me.
How did you meet? Because he's, for those who don't know, a famous street photographer. He shot up in the Bronx and in all over in Harlem. He shot people, but his photographs were known because he would get people to pose, and it was in the poses that they weren't like spontaneous photos. Actually, the people would pose for it, but he got all these incredible poses in the early days of like the hip hop culture and all that. Yeah,
he's an icon and a legend.
He really is,
and just a very righteous and wise individual. And Jamel Shabazz found me. That's a blessing unto myself, because in 2012 there was a film came out, a short documentary that one of my friends did on me called Slang Aperture. And it was just me walking around New York City, taking pictures, being interviewed, and that was the early stages. All I shot at that point was black and white. Anyhow, when that film went onto the internet, like within the same week that it was released, I got an email from Jamel Shabazz just saying, I recognize your work and, it's wonderful.
Did you know who he was then?
Oh, yeah, I knew who he was. I definitely knew who he was. I didn't know he was ever going to contact me.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
Yeah, we got similar roots in the realm of consciousness that we deal with. So he was able to relate directly to me and say, "Yo, brother, that's good work you're doing." And he invited me to his house and we sat down, we had dinner, we spoke for about 6 hours. Wow. This happened on 2 occasions, and he just basically gave me the blueprint of what to be mindful of and what to look out for, as my career evolves. And to this day, he's a good brother. We actually are doing the joint show at Real Works on the 12th.
Right, yeah. So Jamel Shabazz will be there as well. I'm a fan of his work as well. Those images are really like iconic, and you don't forget those Kangol and the sneakers. Everything was just everybody was just dressed so specifically.
Exactly.
There's people that were definitely affecting a particular style, and who knew it was going to that it would have such a strong visual.
He caught something that was golden. I think that's the power of photography, when you could capture something which isn't going to be permanent, and you could make it permanent through your work. You could give it another life through your work. Same thing with me. Like, I'm shooting some of the most disadvantaged, disenfranchised, impoverished people on 125th and Lexington, but I'm doing that with the mindset that it's not always going to be that way. That corner is going to be completely different in 10, 20 years from now. So I think that I'm archiving something which is going to be very important.
Too. Yeah, because even though, like you just said, there's a tragic nature to it, obviously these are people that are suffering, and their families are suffering. But that's it was also, as we pave over these neighborhoods, there are stories there that are important to remember. Yeah,
my intent is to show that there's actually beauty within the suffering.
What do you see?
I see a lot of light within the darkness. I shoot primarily at nighttime. I really shoot only at nighttime.
Yeah.
And I'm able to find the light within the darkness. And I think that that's the duty of everybody going through depression and suffering, or just going through any sort of struggle, to find the light and focus on that, because whatever you focus on expands.
You see the humanity, like people's humanity?
That's also a motive in my work. The fact that a lot of these people are extremely intelligent and they have a lot to offer, but it's such a deep sense of poverty. I think that, this world is governed by a scarcity principle where my interests are more important than yours, or, if you have, I can't have. If I have, you can't have.
It's called capitalism, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
But at the end of the day, and at the beginning, middle, and whatever time of the day, all of us we're all indebted to one another in the sense that we're all brothers. And, there's a lot of fear around that neighborhood. Most people, they come out of the 456 station and they just dart. They just see somebody homeless or they see somebody on drugs and they just dip as fast as they can to get away from there.
Oh, I see. Again, it's called Field Niggas, and it's directed by Khalik Allah.
Yes.
And you can see it on Friday, December 12th. If you're in the New York City area, please do make a point of trying to see it. It's 7 doors at 7 or something like that at the Real Works,
7 o'clock.
Real Works in Brooklyn and Park Slope.
You could give me some money, please, because babes, this thing is bothering me. This first of all, I'm taking you one more picture. I don't want to take no more pictures. You took some pictures of my stomach is hurting. I have to go. I feel like I got to throw up for real.
It's the second
okay,
time.
I'm listening. I'm speaking. What do you want to tell me?
This is the second time I try to smoke with you, or you run off with my L. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be nice.
You sit right there. I told you when I was leaving. I cannot hold your body up on my body for you to lay on me to sleep.
Even if I doze off, you got the L. Tap me. I'm just gonna smoke.
I did. I said I'm leaving. You was sleeping, and I lit the L. You gave me a. You gave me the light and started nodding off.
There's a moment, there's one fellow who says, kind of like an extension of what you're saying, Khalik, he says, we're all one.
That was me. That was me.
That was you?
Yeah, that was me. I
didn't know that because you're showing somebody else.
That goes back to what we said earlier. Because
no wonder it sounded familiar.
Yeah, because, I'm holding the microphone.
Yes.
And, I'm speaking to people. People are speaking to me. I try to not speak too much in it.
Understood.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was still part of it as well. But that's the point that I'm making, is that we're all one. Even the police, in light of what happened, what's been going on with the New York City police and police all across this country. I'm still saying in the film that I love the police. I'm still making those type of statements. And I think that those are the most important statements because, hate has never overcame hate ever. You know what I'm saying? Only love could overcome hate, and only understanding could overcome fear. So, a lot of people said to me, how did you photograph the police? How did you get permission from the police? And I attribute that simply to, number one, asking respectfully. Officer pulled me over the other day. I made an illegal turn. And this was a black cop, and he was just extremely aggravated from the time that he walked up to my car.
Last week?
No, that was this week. It was just a few days ago.
Considering all that's been going on, I'm sure a lot of police are aggravated these days.
All I did is I spoke to him very respectfully. I said, "Officer, please be lenient." I saw that, I was coming up on the bridge and there was no left turn, so I had to make a U-turn. And he said, "Why should I be lenient?" And I didn't give him an opportunity to give me the ticket. I gave him my license, and as I gave him my license, I said, "Oh, it's clean." So he walked back to the car, and as he's in his car, I'm thinking to myself, he doesn't really want to write me the ticket. He doesn't want to do that.
Right.
So I'm focusing on his higher nature. I'm focusing on his better nature. 2 seconds later, he walked out, gave me the license back, and I said, "Thank you, officer. I'll be more careful." And I drove away without a ticket.
Yeah.
And
you did have a clean license. I'm sure it had something to do with it.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was your nature too.
Definitely.
No,
I mean, not to discount, everybody that's been getting beat up by the cops, because that's very, it's happening.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's all a mindset. Everything that we see, the body with the physical, none of that is the cause. All of that's the effect. The psychology is always the cause.
Yeah.
So the problem exists in our psychology of all people, of all men, women, and children. There's a psychological problem that needs to
be dealt with directly.
Exactly.
And honestly, yeah.
It's deeper than race. It's deeper than any of these things which look like the cause.
The way you were describing, we're all one. I mean, it sounds like you definitely were influenced by Martin Luther King. I don't know if that's the case, but the way you were just talking about your values, it did sound a lot like Martin Luther King.
It's funny because the name of the film, Field Niggas, I actually grabbed that from Malcolm X.
Yeah. Well, that was my next question.
Yeah.
The title is definitely bold. And I was wondering, Malcolm used it in a kind of, what's the word, pejorative. So he kind of used it more, I don't know if the word's ironically, but.
Yeah, the title Field Niggas represents, the whole thing is an implication to slavery.
Yes.
Slavery is still prevalent in New York and across the world, across the entire world. And the term field niggas is in reference to the masses of people, because you got a lot of people who think that doesn't exist anymore, and there's no more racism, there's no more slavery, and these problems are of the past, and so on.
I don't think anybody's going to use the term post-racial for a while again after the last couple of weeks. we were supposed to be post-racial in a post-racial culture now, because there's much more equality. But after the last few weeks and what in the news, I think people would probably be embarrassed to use that again. Obviously, we're not quite as far along as we were feeling proud of.
And I'm not trying to build up any more degrees of separation. Like just with that title, I'm not trying to create any further separation, because the separation is already great as it is. But with that title, when I think about field niggas and during slave times, those were the most powerful slaves. Mm-hmm. Those were the ones who were, running rebellions, and, Nat Turner was leading revolts and insurrections all across the South, Virginia. To me, we have to do the same thing nowadays, but in an intellectual form. Mm-hmm. It's not about going out and killing anybody. Like I said, that can never be the solution. But as far as the power that comes and the discipline and the degree of seriousness that we have to approach problems with, that's where I get the term field niggas. Mm-hmm. Field niggas is, we still going through slavery. Just being in the physical form of a body, we're slave to our appetites. Mm-hmm. We're slave to having to sleep at night and wake up during the day, and going through, the everything that the planet enforces us to go through, having to have a job. And, I have a full-time job, although my, photography and film career is, expanding, and I'm doing very well with that. I still work, and I'll continue with that until I feel like, and some people may say, oh, you're a chump. Some people have told me, oh, you're a chump to keep that. I work for AMC Networks in Bethpage, Long Island. I'm a technician. Mm-hmm. And to me, that does not in any way, that's great, mess up what I'm trying to do with my career. No. It helps.
Welcome to the arts.
Yeah.
Khalik Allah, again, last time the film is called Field Niggas, and I hope people come out and see it. You'll be there. Jamel Shabazz will be there, right? Ralph Scott will be there. The friends of Real Works will be there. Yeah. It's fantastic to meet you. Once I saw the movie, I said, I got to talk to Khalik, because really was I didn't know what to expect, but I was very happy once I saw it.
Yo, thank you.
Always looking for that.
I'm grateful to have met you as well, and thank you for having me, brother.
You got it.
Just give me one word of advice.
Go home. Go home. Stay home. And that's it. I'm high right now. I want to go home. I want the 15 bucks to come in over here right where I'm sitting to then pick me up. Smoke cigarettes?
Nah, I don't smoke that bullshit. You know what I mean? I smoke bud when I have to, once every few months, usually when I'm editing or doing a project, you know what I'm saying? But besides that, I keep the lungs all pranayama, you know what I mean?
Can I ask you a question without this?
Yeah.
Without this.
No, this is me. This is. Just tell me. Come on. You know you can open up to me. Whatever.
Do I look alright?
Listen.
For real.
You look like you need. You look like you could be doing a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? You look like this. It doesn't matter how the fuck you look, because I'm seeing you beyond the body. You know what I mean? You got to remember one thing. You're not the body, yo. If I was only seeing the body, I'd probably
stay. What do you see?
I see light. That's the truth about you. That's the truth about me. You know what I mean? You ever catch a secondhand K2 contact high?
Making love. knock and knock. Oh, you. And you know that I can't leave you alone.